Welcome to our next session with Testimonies with Todd. Today I have a special guest, someone that's special to me. Been a friend for a while, Mr. Brian Abbott. Hello, Brian.
Hello. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Trust me, I couldn't think of anyone else. Actually, you're on one of my first people I wanted to do this, and I've been trying to set this up for a little bit. Very excited to hear your complete story. I know I've heard bits and pieces, but now to get it all out there would be fantastic. Just a little bit. I know you've listened and heard, Testimonies with Todd. I really derived from just a text thread of people talking about testimonies after camp and turned into this because a lot of people don't think their testimonies are important because maybe they're not as exciting as other testimonies, but it's really to get it out there that every testimony is important. You never know who you're going to impact. Someone could be going through the same thing or, thinking the same thing that you're thinking, and you just never know who you're going to reach. So it's not all about being homeless or addicted to drugs. Sometimes it's you stubbed your toe. It could be anything to when Jesus comes into your life, and everybody needs to hear about that, and that's why I do this. So, again, thank you for coming. So, really to get into it, so Brian, what was your church life like before you were saved?
I was raised in the Methodist church. My parents both went there. So my sister were forced to go essentially.
And that was up north?
That was up north, yep. I'm from Illinois originally.
Okay.
So we were there, and it made sense to me. I believed in God. There were some things that I just kind of thought were obvious, God was a part of. Because I guess I saw the evidence that he was real, and that there was a God, and instead of just random stuff and making excuses or calling it coincidence or, whatever. But there was never a personal relationship there. And so where I believed in him and it made sense, there was he wasn't a part of my life or in my heart. I wouldn't say I was saved.
So it's just like, you go to church on Sunday?
Yeah, it was more tradition than anything else. Yeah.
Like schedule, regiment.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then for a period when I was in junior high, my parents, their marriage was struggling, and there was a lot of fighting, and ended up getting New Testament from the Gideons. They passed it out at my junior high, actually, which was surprising. But in the back of that, there was different topics that you could reference the the verses on it, and
okay.
I remember looking up peace and some different things and family, and just looking for, because my house was at that time was a little turmoil, so I was looking to God for that and in the scriptures, and I found a comfort there, but ultimately I still didn't have that foundation in that relationship, so that kind of fell to the wayside, I guess.
But that drew you closer at some point.
Yeah, at that point, yeah. Because I still, it's amazing. You can run to God even if you don't have that relationship with Him. He's still a comfort. He's still there for you.
Yeah.
And so that's what that was. So I didn't have that walk in place with Him, but He was still a shelter and providing peace during that time.
Okay.
And like I said, I didn't have that foundation there of that personal relationship, so life just went on, and ended up kind of walking away. And when that season had calmed down, just kind of went on my own little world, I guess, my own business.
This is all through high school. And...
Yep. And then where it ultimately changed was in high school. Met some friends. It was sophomore year. They invited me to their youth group. It was Assemblies of God Church.
Okay.
So went there. Their band was actually going to play. So I went the week before just to meet some people and check it out. And then, went the week after, of course, when they were playing, and made good friends with some people that ended up being lifelong friends. So they'd be like, hey, you're coming back, and eventually they just quit asking and picked me up and took me there.
Just showed up.
Yeah. So it was, I don't remember the time frame, but it was a period of time there. We actually watched a terrible Rapture movie.
Okay.
It was cheesy and everything, but the truth was still in there. And during that, I realized that I didn't have that personal relationship, and I realized that I would have been left behind in the rapture because that wasn't there.
Because you didn't.
Yeah, I'd never asked him into my heart. I still believed in him, and some of the stuff. Obviously the worship is different in the Pentecostal than it was in the Methodist because that was super traditional.
Right.
And that stuff made sense. And as the youth pastor would explain things, or as he'd preach, it would make sense, and I could understand it. And but like I said, that piece was still missing of that actual relationship with God.
Okay.
So that all became obvious, during this rapture little movie thing, and then they had an altar call afterwards, for anyone who needed to accept Jesus, and I knew that was what I needed to do.
So that's the next question. This is when you were saved.
This is when I actually became saved. It was in February of '91.
Okay.
And it was pretty wild because I was crying during the movie, and I knew what I needed to do, but they kind of had you bow your head, and so I'm got my hands on my legs, and I'm kind of bowing, praying, and they were asked you to raise your hand if you needed to, and feeling wise, it felt like I raised my hand, like I didn't. So I actually opened my eyes. I'm like, okay, my arm's still there, but for all that I could feel, it felt like it was raised. The little tingling is the blood.
Oh wow.
So I'm like, yeah, that's just confirmation. He didn't raise my hand physically for me. No one saw it because it wasn't raised, but I had that feeling like, okay, yes, this is your time.
This is the moment.
Yeah. So I closed my eyes, raised my hand, didn't feel anything because to me it was already in the air, and then went forward and got prayer and accepted the Lord into my heart at that time. So that's when everything shifted because I had that personal relationship at that point. So I just grew from there and had been walking with Him ever since, essentially. Some seasons are better than others, but I've never turned my back on Him, and He's always been there.
So you described what happened, but when it happened, can you tell me how it felt?
There was a piece there. There was a big piece. At that point, I had gotten that missing piece that I had before, which was that foundation with Him, where I had asked Him into my heart. So once I did that, He was there. I knew that.
It was full.
Yeah. So it was, instead of just being an incomplete thing that I followed, which is kind of what I did before in junior high when I was reading the scripture for peace and what I wanted out of it. I had that relationship with Him, and He had made me whole. My sins were forgiven, and He was now in me.
Right.
So at that point, I was whole, complete, because He was with me now.
You said you were crying, it was during the movie.
Yeah.
Were you crying because you're like, I know that I wouldn't be...
Yeah.
I know I'm not going with Him in the rapture.
Right.
Okay. So it was a
just
sadness.
Because I realized that I've called myself Christian, but I've missed something. Yeah. And something hasn't been right. And so I'm seeing that now. So it was just that reality that, I'm lost, man. It just hit me. And I didn't care who was around, High school, a bunch of buddies, you don't want to be crying, in church, but I didn't care. Because it was reality, and I saw that clearly at that point. And
then took Him in, and the peace did it just feel like a wave, or just?
I guess maybe more of a release.
Okay.
So it was just there.
Peace, a comfort.
Yeah.
Wow. It's just not a wave, just boom.
Yeah.
It's just there.
When I asked, so it was basically after the prayer, it was like, okay. This is right. This is how it's supposed to be. Having that relationship with Him at that point.
That's awesome. Tell me something that you learned after you were saved.
One of the big things I had to learn was trying to figure out His will for me.
Okay.
And I realized that as we just follow Him, that He will put us on that path where. You may not always ever have a roadmap, but when you look back, you see, okay, this is what He's had in store for my life, because wherever I've gone, those things are there. For me, it was being a part of leading worship.
Okay.
So it was never like I've gone here to do this. Along the way, he's put me in spots where I've been on different worship teams, and he's used me. Sometimes it's a smaller setting. Sometimes, it's
You've told me
Sunday
some of
morning.
those stories.
Yeah. So I started off, in some prayer meetings, so there'd be 8 people.
Right.
Which is obviously where you want to start when you're starting instead
When
of
you're new, yeah.
yeah, instead of a Sunday morning service. But I've had those smaller venues at different times throughout the 20 years, and I've seen him put me in those spots where he can use me, where I didn't know that stuff ahead of time, and he's just made it clear, like, this is one of the things I want you to do. This is what I have in store for you, and he's put it there where I've always wanted to see, stuff mapped out ahead of time.
Right.
And he's not usually done that for me.
Right.
So
I don't think he does that for anyone.
probably not, because we try and like, okay, thanks God, I got this from now on,
right.
Instead of trusting him for it. But that was one of the things that I was always looking for. It's like, what does he have for me? Where do I need to go? Where do I do that? How do I get there? And so he just kind of eliminated all that for me and was like, just follow me, and you'll see these things along the way. And it was about making the most of the opportunities that I was presented with, instead of being, I went to college for this, and so I did that, went into that, and went to here for this purpose, and then fulfilled his will for that, which is some people's calling, but that was never mine. He's moved us around a few times, and a lot of the times it was like, okay, here, move.
Right.
And we didn't have, anything that was necessarily pulling us, so we had to sort all that out and figure that out, and, his hand has been in that, but where I was looking for, okay, we're going here for his will, and it's going to look like this, hasn't been there. But I've always seen his hand in that, and where he's used us, me and Stacy, he's had us in the right spot at the right time, where we can be used to help people, and where we're able to grow as well.
It's big when you say I see his hand in that, because some people wouldn't even try. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? There's there's no reason for this, so I guess it's not God.
Right, and that's where it's amazing, because you have choice, but his hand is in it where you are. So without getting in the whole predestination ordeal right now, he's had a purpose for us in each place that we've gone.
Yeah.
And we came down to Florida. We chose to come to Florida. He didn't force us to do that.
Right.
But we've seen his hand in getting us down here, and in the different places that we've lived and served down here.
And grown and prospered, and
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's definitely been in his plan, where, we didn't have these grave, signs that were glowing in neon, before we got here. But absolutely, he's been in it.
That's a good transition into my next question, because as Christians, when we get saved, we always think that this is going to happen and that's going to happen. What's something you thought was going to happen that just did not happen?
Full-time ministry was one of the things that I thought was going to happen.
Really?
Yeah, because that was my desire. So,
like preaching, delivering the word, or
no, music ministry.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I've always wanted to do. Since high school.
Oh wow.
Shortly after I got saved, that's what I felt I wanted to do, and that was never part of the plan. And I've led, like I kind of said, I've led worship everywhere I've gone. Mm-hmm.
But not full time. This
right.
is my
I've always had to
position.
Double job.
Yeah.
And that was one thing that I thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's just his will, and I don't totally understand all that still, but I know that he's been a part of what I've done, and he's used me, everywhere I've gone.
Has that strained your relationship with God over the years?
If I let it, yes, because I've let it. I've gotten bitter over it because I don't multitask well, and I'm not the most efficient person. Like plowing through work, like Stacy, she's a busybody doer.
Oh yeah,
so
get it
she'll
done now. Yeah.
Plow through tasks, like nobody's business. I'm not like that, and so having to, work 40 hours and then do ministry, all the practice, because you have to practice all the songs and stuff.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's a time commitment.
It's not just you show up that day and you do it.
Right.
It's this day, this day, this day.
Like
then.
Sundays are, that's fun because you've done, hours worth of work,
right.
Ahead of time during the week to prepare and pull everything together and, pray about what you're doing. So it's just been a lot. So that's irritated me because I'm like, if I could dream more, if I could do more, put more time to it, what could I accomplish? And so at times I've let myself get bitter over that and angry because I just get frustrated because sometimes where I'm like, this is as good as I can do with the amount of time that I have to put towards it. And sometimes I don't feel that that's enough or good enough. And I know he judges the heart as opposed to like the actual, outcome, so he's not grading my technical skill on the drums that day.
Right.
He's, looking at my heart and what I'm bringing to worship, and am I worshiping during that, and am I doing, the best that I can to, make the song, draw others into worship as well. Not how good I played, but sometimes I'm like, if I was able to practice more, I'd have it better, wouldn't have screwed up on that part, or,
right.
Would have been a little smoother here. And so I get frustrated at those because I don't always have the time to just put a little more, into it.
Yeah.
So that has caused problems, before, and I just have to lay that down. It hasn't worked out. I still don't understand all of that. But that's where I have to also look at how has God used me, sometimes I have to strip it down like, okay, has God used you? Okay, yes, he has. Okay, so quit complaining. He's using you in worship, which is what you wanted. It looks different than you thought, but he's been using you everywhere I've gone. Literally, I have never asked to play worship anywhere.
It's just happened.
It's just happened.
So do you think, since being saved, that, giving your life to Jesus, that's what he's directly given you, is that ability that no matter where you end up, you get to do this. And I say get to because I know that's something you would want to do full time, but when you show up in a new place, it's not that you're going in saying, hey, I want to be part of the worship team. It just kind of happens from what you just said, right?
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, if there's anything else that you think he's directly, given you directly since you've been saved, what else would it be? I mean, to me, that's kind of what it sounds like.
I mean, that's definitely me fulfilling. I mean, we're called to worship, and I know that's not all musical. Obviously, we can be a plumber and do our job, to the best of our ability and glorify God in that.
Fair.
Absolutely, and that's just as much worship as me, playing the drums or the guitar.
Right.
But for me, worship is interactive as well. Like, I hate reading. If I have to scroll or turn a page, I'm half checked out. So for me, worship was foundational in my growth as a Christian. Because even though I could just sit and that's actually how I learned to lead worship is just worship songs. I would take songs that I knew how to sing in church and started playing the guitar to it. So I would just spend time worshiping on my own, and then that would lead to prayer times or times where I'd be able to get into the Word because I'd finally helped shifted everything through singing.
You said that's when you feel closest, is when you're in worship.
Yeah, because I'm doing something. It's like I'm doing something with God as opposed to here I'm just talking to you and you're not necessarily responding, like in a normal, person-to-person conversation.
For lack of a term, like you're playing a board game with God, but it's worship too. You're there with Him.
Yes, yes. And that would, like I said, that would open doors where I could pray or could read, spend that time, doing the normal things that, are a part of, growing closer to God and hearing His voice, what He has to say through the Scriptures. So I know there's other people like that, that's not just the way I am.
Right.
So I wanted to be able to help draw people into that, where they're not going to listen to some dude, preach at them for 45 minutes.
Right.
Because Although that's not the intent, and I understand that's, how else do you communicate that? But, someone is talking to you without any interaction or,
Yes.
conversation.
Right.
And I get it. But that's one of the problems that some people have with that.
Yes.
And sometimes, through worship, people can open up their hearts and be able to allow God to speak to them so that the preacher can share the word, and they'll be open to it as opposed to just walking in, hear a message,
No, I mean, it makes sense because there are people that they love worship and they may not stay for the whole message, but I think if there wasn't any worship, they just wouldn't be there, period.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just how some people are. And that's
Mm-hmm.
preference, that's fine because we're all there for the same reason, right? To worship, to praise Jesus, that's the point. So people have told me that. I love worship. And they're okay with the message, and there are people that are the
Right.
opposite.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
So I completely understand that.
Yeah.
So talk about some challenging times that may have caused you to doubt your faith outside of the I'm not a full-time worship leader.
There's been times where God has moved me and Stacy. We were up by Chicago when we first got married.
Yep.
And he moved us down to Peoria, and
Peoria, sorry, it's just fun to say.
so we went to Central Illinois, surrounded by cornfields. And when we were looking at moving, everything was open doors.
Okay.
So we get there, all the doors close.
Whoa.
And so that was for a while. We ended up in a friend's basement.
Wow.
And
So opportunities here. Wait, nope, no more opportunities.
right. So that was a rough time. And God used us in a great way there. That was a great time. Ended up being a great time for us. But that was.
So was it all the opportunities disappearing? That's like, God, what are you doing?
Yeah. So we're like, because we checked, we prayed through things. We got some people's advice that, or Christians that we trust, ahead of time. Hey, we're looking at this, we're praying about this. And there seemed to be open doors, and the jobs didn't work out. I don't remember which one. One of us had a job lined up and it didn't work out, and Stacy got another one real quick. I was struggling to find a decent job. Ended up working at a temp agency for a while.
Wow.
Couldn't get into the house that we were going to get because we didn't have jobs, because the jobs fell through.
Oh, yeah.
So
stability,
yeah.
right?
Right. Yeah. So people are like,
That
we're
whole
not giving you a bunch of money.
Right.
So just those different things, and some things changed with the ministry we were looking at being involved in. But shortly after, the church that we started going to announced a church plant, and so right away we knew
Church plant.
when they announced that church plant was going to be across the river in another city, like two cities kind of close to each other.
Oh, okay.
So
another church.
Yes.
Okay.
So we went to one church because it was we knew it was a solid church. It was
Yeah.
in the area.
Yeah.
A ministry program I had gone through was based out of there. So we're like, we'll just go here until we figure everything else out.
Right.
So they announced the church plant. We're like, yeah, that's where we're supposed to go. So
Okay.
ended up going there, and like I said, everything worked out. We ended up being real involved with the college and career group there. And that was a great experience. Met some great friends. Still friends with a couple of them today. Just it was an awesome opportunity. So everything worked out, but yeah, we had the rug pulled out from under us basically. So that was a hard time.
And then God comes along and puts it
Yep.
right back under.
Yep. So it was ended up being good, but you don't necessarily see that when you're walking through it.
No. Definitely not.
The job I worked at the temp place ended up being I was installing office furniture, so not like a glamorous job, but ended up being practically one of the most helpful jobs, fixing things and, knowing how to install stuff and set it up. To this day, I'm still one of the guys who sets up office furniture, even though I'm a computer tech by trade.
Right.
So, it's been valuable. And Stacey's still doing air conditioning, which is where she ended up working. So it all worked out. But just not what you thought of initially. And we kept, one of the big things with that scenario is we kept seeking God through that. We did not stop. It was really hard, but we kept right in the face of God and talking to Him. And through the different days where one of us is struggling with the whole thing and like, forget it. The other one would always be strong, and that would bounce back and forth depending on whatever scenarios we were facing. But we were able to continually just keep going back to God and leaning on each other and trusting that He was guiding us, and He definitely was, and got us through that.
Isn't that weird how that works sometimes? Because I've had it happen where I'm like, God, what's going on? And Carrie will do the same thing. She's like, why are you like mad at him? It's not him. Mm-hmm. And then she'll be. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, he's not the one doing this. Yeah. And it's always the other one is not in that space of being upset with God. Like, it's like he's like, come on, tell her, right? Come on, like get him.
And that's
it makes it easy. It makes it nice.
Yeah, and that's the importance of being unequal or being equally yoked.
Yes.
Versus just they're a Christian. Like, okay, are they in the same place as you? And sometimes seasons change, and sometimes that's a little further apart than others. But that's why that's so important. Because you go through that and you're like, forget this, man. I'm out of here. If you two aren't in the same place and seeking after God and watching for Him to move, and sometimes waiting for His voice before you move.
Yeah.
When one of us is thinking something, making sure we're on the same page. Because the different moves we've had to let go of different things. And
you guys have moved a lot.
We,
until you got here.
Yeah.
You guys have been here for a while.
Right. Because we've been in the same house for like 15 years, I think.
Right.
And
basically ever since the kids, like right after the kids.
Yeah, because we moved to Mount Dora when we were getting ready to have Mackenzie, our oldest. So that's when we moved there, because if her job didn't work out at Train, they were trying to work a position for her where she could be hybrid, work at home and the office some days.
Right.
That was 20 years ago, so that wasn't a thing normally.
No.
So they were trying to work that out, but if that didn't work, she wasn't going to be in the office 5 days a week.
Yeah.
So Mount Dora we were able to get more, money for the house, or more house for the money, save there. And then it was closer to my job because I worked in Mount Dora. So that would have been less travel for me. So it was a better scenario if something happened and we had to just go to, my income.
And the kids have been in the same house the entire time?
We were there for 5 years, then we moved to our current house.
So, but still in Mount Dora?
Correct. Yeah, it was literally 10 minutes from our current house.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's amazing in itself. For them to have that stability.
Yep.
Just like we talked about earlier. Like, not stable, so we're going to give you this house. Mm-hmm. But maybe that's why.
Yep.
It wasn't supposed to be.
Yep. So he's worked it out. And that was one of those where we were kind of let it him. Because we looked at houses, bigger houses, because at the time Stacy's sister was living with us.
Okay.
So we needed a bigger house, once Nathan came around. And we just were praying about it and looking around, and all the doors seemed to shut. And then, so we're like, okay, we're okay here.
Yeah.
And then just kind of left it at God's feet. And then He opened the door later for us to get into the house we were at. I had a friend call me. I was like, such and such house. And it was a short sale, and she gave me like all this information. So I just called that realtor and worked it out with them, and we got the house.
And prospering.
Yeah.
The kids are doing amazing.
Yep, they're doing good. So
and they're great kids.
And good.
I honestly have never seen someone less into the drama than Nathan.
He's so not into it.
Like, he's like, like even just anything. He's like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
And there are so many, and not that, but there are so many young ladies that are like in love with him, and he's like, I'm good. I don't even want to talk to you right now because you're just way too much.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's good. Yeah, that makes things easier.
That makes it so easy, right?
Right.
And Mackenzie's amazing as well.
Yeah, and she's not so into the drama either.
No.
So she's got a couple friends.
Used to be a little bit.
Yeah. So she'll enjoy the drama that other people are having some, and then she'll try and help them out of it.
She's become kind of a mentor, right? To Ella.
Yeah.
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 That's really cool, and that just kind of happened.
Yeah.
Real organic.
Yeah, because we remember her talking about it, and we're like, who? And so it's just one of those things that kind of got worked out.
Yeah.
So,
but it just goes to show what foundation you guys have put in place, for them, with your belief, with your faith. You're going to God constantly and having that foothold in His Word has set that example, and then they get to see it and live it at the same time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's not just about, there are so many kids that come to youth, and it's just that, and they go home.
Right.
And the parents aren't rooted in it.
Yeah.
You guys have been rooted in it before the kids came along, and that's all they've known. And to your point, when you grew up, I grew up United Methodist too. So it was, you go to church and it's Sunday, and then you do this and you do that. But in the same way, that was what I was told to do.
Yeah.
Now I do things because I want to. I feel it. And that's what they got to experience.
Yeah.
Totally different.
Yeah. Yeah. And unfortunately with the more traditional churches, because I've talked to Catholics that have been the same, is the tradition, there's a lot of meaning in a lot of the stuff and the traditions, 100%. But it gets lost because, you don't necessarily get told that. And, the confirmation classes do go over some of it, but I don't know that they do the best job necessarily because... And that's also the danger of anything that becomes routine is it just becomes a routine as opposed to something that you do because of, whatever the main reason was. Is now it's just a habit, so I just do it, I don't know, kind of attitude, and as opposed to, like, no, this is why I take communion, to remember what God did for me, to, come to Him and, repent because I've sinned since the last time I took communion,
Right.
And to have that attitude check, that's the reason I do it, not just because, it's served on, 1 month every year, once a month or, weekly, whatever, the scenario was in the church.
I think that's the difference between a lot of the newer teachings in the churches. It's about, look, I'm not perfect, you're not perfect. It's not the pastor up there just preaching like he's perfect and no one else is.
Right.
It's, we're all not perfect.
Yeah.
Because we're human, and good news, He died for our sins. So let's go, and we're gonna praise Him together. So it's been a big shift over the past decade about. Yeah. That has really and the Christian faith is moving in a huge way right now, a huge way all across the nation. So it's a great thing to be a part of.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I got too caught up in trying to be perfect, which you still need to try and do that to some degree, but you can't. So don't pretend, that you are, right?
Yes.
I should be better as a Christian because I'm trying to do certain things and keep things in place and keep some things in check.
Yeah.
But I'm still imperfect and still going to have issues and problems. So it's not that I'm any better than you. It's just I'm trying to see God in these things. And that's the difference.
Yeah, 100%. That's going to be my spiritual tips from Todd is if you run into someone who is not a Christian, ask them why. If it comes up, don't approach someone and say, "Hey, are you a Christian?" Don't do that. But if it comes up, ask why don't they believe? And if they say, "Well, because Christians are perfect, this, that, and the other," tell them the truth.
Yeah. Tell
them what's real. Christianity is not about being perfect. It's about giving your life to Jesus, being kind, loving, right?
Yep.
And forgiveness.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The biggest sacrifice of forgiveness ever made was Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely.
He forgave us for killing him.
Right.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal.
Yeah, much bigger than anything we have to forgive. Yeah.
100%. Brian, I really appreciate you telling me your testimony. Fantastic. I learned a lot. I knew some of the things, but I didn't know you wanted to be a full-time worship leader. I knew you wanted to lead worship, not full-time. That's awesome. But yeah, definitely some struggles that you guys have had over the years, but never turning away, man. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I found my freshman year of high school. I was looking at a bunch of different things, different religions and stuff like that. And so when it came time, I knew that there was nothing else, like no other religion cares about you, right? There's no other deity that cares that you matter to out there. Because it's all you striving to be better, reach a higher goal, and become more like whatever, but like Christianity, like you actually matter.
Yes.
And through all the struggles I've had over the years and different things that I've wrestled with, and I've always been able to hang on to that because I found it absolutely true. And so it made sense when I came to the time that, okay, this is the truth. I searched for different things, and it's not in those.
Yeah.
It's here, with Christ. And
like he calls himself the Lamb.
Yeah.
Not the super, he does call himself Almighty. He doesn't call himself, we call him Almighty.
Right.
But he calls himself the Lamb.
Yeah.
For slaughter. That's what he is. He knows it. No other religion does that.
No, correct.
Yeah, that's amazing. And again, I love your story. I couldn't be happier that you came and did this with me. Again, you're one of the first people I thought of because I just know that other people have been in that situation, especially the not getting what I want, the not getting what I'm supposed to do, this is where I need to be, and then coming to terms like, you know what, if this is what God has in store, I'm good, right? And it's a big deal, especially after you've taken him into your life and your heart, right?
Yeah.
So amazing.
Yeah. I'm glad you asked. It was good to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it so much, Brian. I love you.
No problem, man. I love you.
All right.